What's up guys, Jay's 2 cents here, bringing you a video about a thing, but looks kind of normal, doesn't it? Yeah. Construction starts tomorrow on the expansion project. But I thought, the opportunity of going through literally every single product that I have been accumulating on the shelves for years, I came across this gem. Yeah, it's an AIO cooler. But trust me, this was, in my opinion, like the pinnacle of AIO coolers. And I wish they still made them this way. So we're just gonna kind of take a trip down memory lane of what I think was one of the most exciting and best products ever made for water coolers.
Hey, Jay. Jay. Jay.
What?
We got work to do.
Yeah, I'm playing World of Warships.
World of Warships is the free-to-play naval strategy game where you command the most iconic and famous warships from World War I and World War II, recreated with stunning detail and accuracy. Build your fleet while participating in various game types while upgrading your ship's arsenal along the way. New players who sign up using my link below will receive an exclusive starter pack to get you up and running quickly by receiving 7 days premium time, 1 million credits, 300 doubloons, and the Tier 5 premium ship, the Exeter. So what are you guys waiting for? Start sinking ships with World of Warships by heading to the description below and getting your freebies. Also too, if there's a lot of reverb, it's obvious why. I apologize. Echo! Oh! Hiya! Hiya!
Very rarely defrag an entire studio.
Well, I'm gonna defrag your brains now with an AIO that didn't conform to all of the stupid patent restrictions and stuff. Okay. So this is just fun. We're gonna test it in a sec on modern hardware. The last time I took a look at this was probably 2016, 6 years, right? At least, since it was made. This is the Lictech 240 by Enermax. Enermax was a brand for the longest time I just sort of wrote off as the mono price of stuff, right? It's generic, but it gets the job done. It's just not something you get too excited about. But when I had opened it, I was just like, oh my God. Because it was like the biggest, chongest radiator you would ever find in an AIO. So this is a 360, whatever Fractal called it. I don't know, they kept changing the name. It's just got an Exeter style aluminum radiator with thin fins, very, very similar to what you would get is just a standalone rad for an open loop. Only it's all aluminum construction, and then it has special fluid in there to keep it from corroding, theoretically. This one, if I remember correctly, was potentially copper. Maybe not, it might be aluminum, but it is. You can't hurt the thing. If you've ever tried to work with any of these AIOs and or even just regular radiators, these little fins, they are not, look, I can bend them, push them all around, right? So you work on it, something touches it and goes, ah, and leaves a dent. See that? Ah, right? That just took an entire fan and oh God, I can't even push it back. There we go. These are probably the beefiest fins of any rad I have ever used. Check this out. Does that give you any indicator as to how beefy? Look, I knocked the blade off of the fan. That is how hard it smacked the rad. Yeah, I put a dent in it. I intended to. It's still gonna work. My point about this is this was made prior to the whole Exeter kind of controlling the entire industry thing. I like Exeter, but unfortunately their patents and such have put such a stranglehold on the industry regarding AIOs. Look at the pump on this thing. The pump slash heat plate, cold plate, whatever you want to call it on here, is beefy AF. This, I wish I could describe this. It's super solid. The heat sink on this thing is nuts. This helps dissipate some heat from the pump, a little bit maybe from the fluid, and They don't build them like this anymore. This was my absolute favorite AIO ever created. And I used it in my sim rig, actually, for a long time. But this thing is absolutely, if that doesn't give you any indicator as how tough it is. And its connections, one 3-pin plug. Not even PWM, just DC, that's it. It was super simple. This precedes the days of RGB everywhere, you know, RGB this, RGB that. Just plug it into your motherboard, let your motherboard control it, put some good fans on there. These fans actually weren't bad. They were multi-speed fans. So if you take a look here, you can see you had a dip switch on the side of the fan that you could control the speeds. You had a low, medium, high, so then it was 600 to 2500, 600 to 2000, or 600 to 1300. So you still had an adjustable range. It's just you had this extra, like, kind of a rev limiter here that would let it go so far, and that was it. But it's one of those things where it was super industrial in the way that it was like built. Now, it advertised that it could cool up to 300 watts. Theoretically today, that means it could also handle barely a 12900K. I'm not gonna test it with a 12900K. I'm just gonna go with a 10900K, which is a 10 core, 20 thread, still over 200 watt CPU, because I really want to see how it holds up today. In terms of like sublimation or whatever it's called, when it will evaporate fluids through the materials. Big, thick. This is like automotive hose, okay? I'm telling you now, it's even hard to bend it because of the fact that it's so beefy. But I hear, listen, the tiniest of sloshing at the very top right now, obviously all the air is up here, and I'm hearing barely anything. Put it in perspective, how is this guy done? Oh yeah, see there's more air in this guy already. But this has the cheaper flexible hose that also just has a sleeve over it. It also may have never been filled to the top to begin with. But I mean, I was beating on this thing right now, and look, that's all we have is some chips in the paint and then a couple of bent fins where I dropped 2 fans on it directly. Let's see what happens if I do the same drop test on here. Oh, is it about right here? That smashed a row. I'm curious now. I don't know if it went, I don't think it went through, we're not leaking, but that smashed a row right there. Maybe that's something else I should point out here. The rows are protected by the fins. I don't know if you can see that. So if you look at the standard Exeter style AIO, the rows are so these little tubes that are real thin and rectangular, this is what all the coolant flows through, right? It goes through one half around and back the other half, so it's a double pass. But the rows are on the same plane as the fins, and the fins touching it are soldered to it just to give it more surface area for heat to be dissipated. But the rows in this guy are a little deeper. They're underneath the level of these fins, and I've just showed you like how incredibly tough and robust these fins are. So that little damage that just happened right there on this side didn't even get to, you know, anything that could cause a leak. Like this right here, there's a big dent in the row right there. So this is one of those things where over time I'd be concerned about this potentially leaking. I mean, if it's not leaking now, it probably won't, but because it doesn't build a ton of pressure like say a car radiator or whatever would. But this is beefy AF, and it's a double pass too. So it's, you know, same thing, it goes down one half and comes back the other. But the thickness of this metal, oh, it says aluminum. So it is an aluminum rad, so it's just thick. Remember, there are tons of different grades of aluminums, whatever. The cold plate is copper, as you can see. It is a ceramic bearing, so this is not a typical Exeter type of pump. It's a much stronger, probably closer to a DDC type of pump than anything else. It's much thicker, it's much beefier. I know I'm going on and on about it. I forgot how excited I was about this particular rad when I found it. It's funny, this predates Ryzen because it says it supports up to AM3+. We all know AM3+ and AM4 are compatible with each other even though AM4 has a slightly different mounting hole, all the brackets basically still lined up and you were still able to use AM3+ stuff on AM4 because all the motherboard manufacturers gave that oblong hole to make it fit. I'm gonna go ahead and hook this up right now to our 10900K. We're gonna load up some Cinebench. We're gonna see if this thing screams for mommy or it just goes, bring it on. 300 watts though in a 240. It's gotta be because of the density of the metal. But that denser metal also takes longer to cool off once it heat soaks, so let's test it. So we got it set up on here. The Fantex AIO is just chilling right there. So for those of you that are like, he's faking it, you'd be surprised if people think we fake, apparently. So it's just chilling there because it's gonna be hooked back up when it's done. The fans are at max speed right now. It's very loud. These are very loud fans. It feels so nice. So here we go. We've got hardware monitor up. I do have AI overclocking enabled, which has always been on this, so it's gonna go 5 gigs all core. It might be hard to read, I'll just call it out. We are running 1.4 volts of vid, up to 1.42. It's a lot of voltage and heat being pumped to the CPU, so we are definitely gonna be testing that 300 watts right there. Package is currently idling between 26 and 36 degrees, depending on the task, the background task going. Cores 0 through 9 are just hovering in between 23 and 25. I don't care about the score. What I care about is the temperatures of how a 6-year-old AIO that's realistically older than that because it was that old. It was already a little bit old when I got it. It was a couple years out, like old, in terms of when they were making it. So we can call it 7, 8 years old. I'm looking for spikes and temps. Packages at 44, 46, 40, 51, 40, 52, 55, 64, 65. Voltage did droop down to 1.27 though because we are still at 4.9 gigahertz. I think we can push it farther now. I'm telling you right now, the cooling capacity on this thing is absolutely insane due to not just the fan speed, which yes, max fan speed is obviously the best case scenario. I'm testing the maximum cooling capacity of the unit. But the density of the radiator, this is not your standard Exeter rad. The fin design, the rows are super thick, so it's probably a pretty high flowing radiator or unit as well. I forgot that the block had a light on it. I mean, it's blue because it predates RGB, but this heat sink it is warmer than ambient. So that means this heat sink is sinking something. So any heat that the radiator doesn't have to deal with is only better. Our max temp that we've hit on the package so far is 72C on a 20 core CPU. When I built the system that I used this cooler on, the 7700K was new. So let's go into BIOS and let's just make this like a 5.2 all core, something stupid like that. So we've synced all cores now. We came off of AI optimized. We're back on sync all cores and we are just going to a ratio of 52, so 5.2 gigahertz all core, 300 megahertz overclock on all core, and auto voltage. Nothing heats up a CPU like letting the manufacturer of the motherboard decide. They would say the CPU is what demands the voltage, but I would say that's not true because I can have the same CPU demand different voltages on different motherboards. So, whatever. Could go pop, but we've already showed you guys, it does not go pop easy. Remember, I maxed out voltage on that one CPU. We're still not sure if we broke it, but we did max out the voltage. It wouldn't let me go any higher and I couldn't get it to die. Safety stuff is safety, apparently. So what voltage is it asking for now? It's a 5.2 all core, 1.585 at idle. Sure, let's clear the min-max and let's see what happens. 84, 85, 89, 86. Oh, there are a couple cores that are throttling because I think we have a couple cores that might be hitting our max. Oh yeah, 92, 95. So yeah, we do have a couple cores that are bouncing off their limit. But that voltage, 1.5 volts under load right now. See, again, that's not an issue of the cooler as much as it's an issue of the whatever, I don't want to call it an algorithm, but it does use an algorithm. It uses it's kind of AI learned over. So for those of you that are wondering, I asked Asus this way back in the day, like with your auto tuning stuff, like how does this work? And they basically have a huge supply of chips that they basically let like some sort of machine learn, like amongst all of these chips, here was like the curve we needed to come up with so that all of them would like have some sort of stability. When you just click a setting, you know you're gonna have a good likelihood of that setting working in your CPU because they used like 1,000 of them or whatever to determine what the setting should be. The problem is, again, to get almost all CPUs to be stable, it requires a lot of voltage and usually a lot more cooling than you could get out of a standard AIO, air cooler, or even water cooling like custom loop. So because of that, it pumps a lot of voltage into the CPU because that's where you tend to find stability. So now what I can do is I can go over here, just go into Extreme Tweaker, I can go to where the voltage is. I'm gonna manually put in, bet you we can do this actually with like a 1.37. 5.2 on the 10900K is like pretty easy to get to. It's that extra 100 megahertz to a 5.3 and above where you find this exponential increase in voltage necessary, load line calibration or V-droop tuning, and then extreme cooling to start keeping it under control. 12900K, that's an entirely different story. In fact, my 10900K at home is actually undervolted and overclocked. So again, based on your CPU, your results are gonna vary. I know it's kind of turned into like a old school, I love this cooler review into more or less how the voltage and stuff works, but we like to learn you guys some things every now and then. But let's just see if we can even start the test without it crashing. All right, didn't crash, and check this out. 71, 67, 65, 73, 100%, locked at 5.2, 5.197. Oh, there's that. So it's basically one of those things where, because I think the base clock probably dropped from 100 megahertz down to like 98.7 megahertz or something like that, is why you get down to that like 3 megahertz is missing. So we just crashed. I'm gonna pump the voltage up to like 1.4. Based on those temps, I'm comfortable with the 1.4. It should probably run without an issue. We'll let it heat up, and then we'll show you guys how awesome this cooler is and why I really wish AIO brands would just stop licensing the Exeter patent and come up with their own stuff that is just not infringing. It's not that hard. The Exeter patent is kind of easy to get around, actually. Voltage is at 1.448. These temps, 78, 72, 70, 70, I mean, these are perfectly fine. This CPU's TJ Max is technically 105. It's set a little conservative at 95 right now in the BIOS, but 105 is where you could set it. And these temperatures are absolutely fine given this voltage. This voltage is still higher than we need to. So can an 7-plus-year-old AIO keep a modern 20-core CPU cool that this was never intended to deal with anything greater than that? Sure, it has the 2011 standoff screws and stuff that you could attach it to like a 2011 CPU. But this thing was so far ahead of its time, in my opinion. It looks fantastic. The build quality is beefy as hell. I found this when we were going through all of our parts, like I said at the start of this video, for our garage sale, and I yanked it out. And I went, I'm not getting rid of this because I love this cooler. I'm keeping it. I think it crashed because I'm wiggling things around. This is my cooler. I'm keeping it. Y'all can't have it. And I really wish Enermax would go back to making them this way, because here's the most disappointing thing. I had done a video about this cooler. And back in the day, you guys remember when I had that, I did the review at home, I think it was actually, at my house with my gaming my simulator rig. And I talked about how amazing this cooler was. That was still a black and yellow build, if that dates things, and it wasn't Skunkworks. I told them this, they saw my video saying how amazing this cooler was, and they went, great, we'll send you the next one, the newest one. And it was like the Exeter crap, and I hated it instantly. Enermax, if you're watching this video, or anyone that makes AIOs is watching this video, be bold. Don't just sign the Exeter license. Come up with a new design. See, you know, I hate to even use the cryptocurrency motto of, you know, fortune favors the brave or whatever it is, but still it's like, come up with something new. Or in this case, just do this old thing again, please. Anyway, I decided to take you guys down temporary memory lane. Hi, I'm Dory. It's been a week.
Yeah.
I decided to take you guys down memory lane of one of my absolute favorite coolers at a time when I did nothing but preach closed or open loop custom design, and I went, hey, this is an AIO I would absolutely stand by, and I still do to this day. I'm sure it could cool a 900K. The only thing is this particular bracketry and stuff won't work on it, because we're gonna explain why in our very next video that we're gonna start shooting now. Bye.